What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Ernie Davis episode 45 of the Barking Brown Show. I'm your host, Jacob, over at Roachism13 on the Twitter, joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Nick Carnes, who's back from his fact-finding mission at Carnesies817 on Twitter. Nick, how are we doing tonight?
Wow. You know, I have returned from my fact-finding mission, and so I have some fun ones for you. But every time you say the episode that we're on, I just think about that. Now, I don't even know how we're already to 45. It's kind of surreal, honestly.
We're coming up May. Star Wars Day is our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, May 4th?
Yeah.
Okay.
May 4th will be the show's 1-year anniversary.
I don't even, I've, you know what? Time flies when you're having fun. And I'm really glad to be back. I appreciate you guys carrying the load without me last week. Yeah. Every once in a while, you know, it was really helpful to just have that week. So I appreciate you guys continuing to do it, and I'm glad, you know, and I appreciate everybody because I know, you know, you're expecting us to be here and all of that, and we love doing it. So I absolutely will be back, you know, here, and so
yeah. Guys, I wanted to take the time to thank everybody. I just finished up my first month over at Dog Pound Daily. I got the final numbers in, and it absolutely blows my mind how many people checked out my articles, liked my articles, yelled at me about my articles. I don't care which one you did, but you know, we hit my article views hit 192,000 views in the month of February for my first month in a kind of a short month. So I just really want to thank everybody that supported me at Dog Pound Daily. I got lots of great combine stuff coming up for you guys this week. Going to talk about Garrett Wilson, maybe Treylon Burks, maybe some 40 times. All kinds of things that are going to come up for you this weekend after the combine stuff. So I just wanted to take time to thank everybody for that. Thank you for the likes, the comments, the subscribes, the Patreon. I dropped the ball on the Patreon this past weekend and ended up doing a spaces, but we will be back with Patreon film study this week. We're going to do tight ends, and we may even double down and do running backs while we're at it, just to make it a twofer since I missed last week. So we will do that. All that great stuff coming up for you guys. I say this every week, but the most valuable thing you can give somebody is some of your time. So thank you once again for giving some of your time to us. We have an amazing guest tonight, but first, I need to ask Ed on so he can preview the show for us, and then we're going to find out about these facts that Nick found out last week. Ed, what's going on, my friend?
What's up, gentlemen? How we doing? Episode 45. We're here.
I know.
Somehow.
Yes, we have a great guest tonight. We have the one and only Jeff Llyod from Locked on Browns podcast. We are so honored to have him on tonight. It's going to be a great show. Fire those Twitter comments and I'll get them on. And gentlemen, let's do this. Let's rock and roll. And also, too, guys, I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. The Underwear Olympics are beginning in Indianapolis. Who are you guys most excited to see? And is there a position that you guys are most looking forward to watching? Maybe not in their underwear.
Can I admit that for a second I got thrown off by Underwear Olympics and thought we were talking about something completely different. And I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And like I almost was like, and I don't know what that is. It's gonna be the wide receivers and the defensive ends for me. It doesn't really matter, but I've heard some guys have put on some size. I want to see if they still move well. I just want to see some of the 40 times. Really, it's the agility things for me, the 3 cones, some stuff like that. I just want to see some of those things. So for me, the biggest day is going to be, I think, Thursday, because that's when the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and I think tight ends are. And then I think the next day is defensive linemen. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
You know what? So not so much actually on the combine field, but Jarvis Landry and Andrew Berry are set to talk at the combine. I'm really curious to see what comes out of that, because
as are David Najoku and the Browns.
That on a much more positive note.
That is the important thing. Everybody knows very well where I stand about David Najoku. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. Ed, we appreciate you, my friend. We will talk to you soon.
Let's have a great show.
All right, we're going to bring him on because we're not going to stick him in the green room any longer, because he'll make this show far more intelligent if we bring him on here. So we're going to bring on the one and only Mr. Jeff Llyod. Jeff, how are you doing tonight, man?
We're good, fellas. And I got to be honest, this green room, there's nothing here. There's no drinks. There's no snacks. So, yeah, as soon as you can get me out of there, the better.
I know. We really got to step up the game. It's pretty horrible in there. Jeff, I wanted to start with David Najoku, just because it got brought up by Ed, and I just wanted to ask you about him real quick before we jump into free agency and the draft and all that good stuff that we're going to talk about last night. I was listening to Locked On Browns on my way home, and it was yesterday. You and Pete, and we're talking about David Najoku, and I didn't realize this until now, and I'm going to run with it. But his 2018, when he was featured, he was top 10 in tight end receiving yards. I didn't know where he ranked that year. I knew he had a great year. I just didn't, realize that ranking until I heard Pete talking about it. And he's like, this is where he was in that role. So, like, are you with me? Like, you got to find a way to bring this guy back, make him tight end 1.
The issue you have with the Browns at the tight end position is, Austin Hooper slated right now to be the highest paid tight end in the room. The problem is he is maybe the best blocker in the room. We know he's not the best receiver in the room. He might be the third best receiver in the room. David Najoku, when this new administration took over for the 2020 season, they had, questions about David Najoku after 2019, which, David missed a ton of time. And, so it was really, really difficult for him. And what did this new regime come in? Look, it's not about being a pass catcher. It's about being a complete tight end. And what did the signing of Austin Hooper basically tell him? It's about being a complete tight end. 2020 started off slow. But as 2020 went on down the stretch and even in the playoffs, you saw a new version of David Najoku, a guy who was committed to the little things, what makes a tight end good. Blocking is huge. You can't be a tell when you're on the field. David Najoku went to work on his blocking. As that started to progress, which we saw with a bunch of players, Rashard Higgins was in that same ilk. You've got to be able to contribute in both facets. David Najoku was able to do that. This year going into 2021, you just saw, and I know I get what people are saying because they don't see the statistical output. I get it. I truly do. But for the Browns, who played a ton of 13 personnel, and maybe that's even going to gravitate towards maybe more 12 personnel, hopefully in 2022. But with that, you want the guys on the field that you can trust the most. Harrison Bryant worked his butt off. He's a willing, almost capable blocker now at the tight end position. Austin Hooper, at the money he's making, it's just not worth it. You have David Najoku, who has blossomed age 25, going in what will be his 6th season, wants to be in Cleveland. He's made this point, eventually, jumped agents to Drew Rosenhaus, trying to secure the bag, essentially, then dropping Drew Rosenhaus because really that was only making more issues for himself than it was really doing, helping himself. You have a situation here where you have a player. Obviously, your quarterback currently likes him. The Browns look at him. They're not going to look at really the first 3 years of his career. They're going to look at the last 2 years of his career. That's all they've been around. A guy who showed up, done the work that's asked of them, improved as a blocker. And for this team, look, they're still going to want 3 tight ends, and that'll be something I'm sure we'll get to and address at some point here today. They're going to want 3 tight ends. But the investment they put into Austin Hooper, they have not gotten a return. What David Najoku, and look, David Najoku has made good money the last 2 years as a former first-round pick. But they, I think, are a lot more comfortable with where David Najoku is at as opposed to where Austin Hooper is at. Harrison Bryant is a guy they would like to get on the field more often. How do you do that? Move on from Austin Hooper. You extend David Najoku and give Harrison Bryant a clear, open path to maybe 35, 45 reps per game.
And I like what you said about the switching to something like 12 personnel. If you're focusing more David Najoku and Harrison Bryant, like I feel a lot better about those guys out wide than I do Austin Hooper in the slot. Like I'm not concerned about Austin Hooper in the slot if I'm a defense. Like
what the worst thing that could happen is Austin Hooper catches the ball for 6 yards. Oh no.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly, a comment I wanted to ask real quick. Kelly asks, does Najoku get a 3 or 4 year deal? I mean, that feels like the sweet spot, doesn't it? Somewhere around there?
Well, with the Browns, everything's always predicated on giving you money year 1 and year 2, and then finding a way to get out in year 3. And look, I mean, we're talking the same thing here with Austin Hooper. Whatever the deal was, it was a lot of money in the first 2 years and the ability to get out of it in year 3. So the actual structure of the contract, the way the Browns have done it to this point doesn't necessarily mean too much because most of the money comes in year 1 and year 2. And look, if you really exceed those expectations, your agent's going to come in and say, look, we know the last 2 years of this contract is essentially bunk. You like us, we like being here. Let's rework it. But, Andrew Berry and his, team, they've been really, really savvy about any of these contracts that they're, entering into as far as what's considered long-term is that it really isn't long-term. It's 2 years. We're going to pay you up front. We'll see. We'll reevaluate where everybody's at in 2 years.
Nick, I'm sorry I cut you off there because I saw the question. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're okay. I just, I try, I do my best to not to be mean-spirited to guys, especially Browns, but I just don't know that I've seen another player have the ability to fall down immediately after catching the ball. More so.
It's an art form.
I don't you should be able to get more than where you catch. I just, especially when you're being paid that well. I don't know.
Did you guys, I'm sure Jeff did. I don't know, Nick, if you saw Jake Burns' article when it came to the data about like his yards after the catch, which was just if you get a chance, go over to the OBR and look out Jake Burns. Austin, I think it was a couple of weeks ago or so, but that was some of the most embarrassing stuff I've ever read. It's
funny with Austin Hooper because, back in the day we'd be watching film in high school and college or whatever, and you just see somebody slip or fall down. And, like we would, obviously everybody's going to get ribbed over it. Man, Turf Monster must have had 6 tackles today. And, that's what you see with Austin Hooper. It's like, oh, there it is. It's drawn up perfectly. And he's crawling and stumbling. And, so it would have been 17 yards, but it's 6. The issue with Austin Hooper is there's no fear. There's nothing there. And it was mind-boggling. And it was like aggravating that this team would try to manipulate opportunities to get Austin Hooper involved early in the game. Oh, wow, we featured Austin Hooper on 5 plays. That's great because I see 3 receptions for 17 yards. Wow, great.
It's really tough looking back at, David Nijoku blows up against LA, right? And you're thinking maybe that's the turning point where, he starts to get featured and that they really accelerate from there. And it just never materialized.
Yeah. No. It's funny too because I've heard pretty well anybody and I know that it happened with I lost my train of thought. Jake Burns was talking to a few people about it and he was like, can anybody explain to me why he's getting these early targets? And it's like, no, we just can't. And I think we're just I think we're done. Like trying to explain it. So guys, I wanted to set it up. Dan, we will get to your question about the draft here in just a little bit. Ed says he likes what Najoku does against AFC North opponents. Yeah, I do notice that it does seem to come out in those games, which is exactly when you need him. I need more David Najoku red zone targets. That's what I need. Because all I can remember is I hate watched the second Steelers game. I didn't want to watch it. And I just angrily watched them with my arms crossed, and they threw it to Najoku in the red zone, and it was just the most beautiful. You're like, why?
Yeah.
Please just give him the ball in the end zone. Now we're getting worked. I'm getting too worked up about it. Okay, let's we'll move on here to free agency and the draft. We'll focus on free agency first. I wanted to go around the circle here and talk about a couple of guys each of us wanted to focus on. So we'll start. We'll go one at a time around the circle and twice or however we want to do it. And we'll start with you, Jeff. But who's a guy like near the top of your list that you just absolutely Cleveland's got to find a way to bring him in?
If it's possible, if Harrison Phillips gets out of Buffalo, and looking at Buffalo and where the money is for them, it's possible that he is going to move on. They have Ed Oliver, who makes a ton of money. They have some other things they have to manipulate as far as, guys who need to be satisfied financially. Harrison Phillips, he's a hard-nosed lunchbox, excels in, playing well against the run. And this is one thing that the Cleveland Browns defense has needed since this regime has taken over. They have not been able to find a way to really stuff the run. Harrison Phillips, a player like this, and you go back to a few years ago, and this was 2019 when Wyatt Teller was starting to play for the Browns, starting to excel. You go to after the game, and there was a line of Buffalo Bills players who wanted to, shake, Wyatt Teller's hand. There's a relationship there. Hardworking guy going from Buffalo to Cleveland. It's hard to say that that's actually a step up in weather, but it probably is. But the opportunity for Harrison Phillips, and this is something I think the Browns they at least need to get at least one good one in here through free agency. There's always that gap when you draft a rookie defensive tackle, understanding, especially with the Browns, where the guys are going to be 22 years of age or younger. So now these are kids going against grown-ass men. So, this is something where I don't think the Browns can kind of skimp. They kind of need to be kind of heavy in this. And if you can get a player like Harrison Phillips in here with his technique, with his work ethic, with his success, and now you have players like Jordan Elliott, you have players like Tommy Togiai looking and saying, talent-wise, and this was the last couple of years, maybe individually we're more talented than these guys, but it's a lot more than just having talent. You got to be able to put in the work effort. You've got to be able to sustain the fact and understand I'm going to get dropped here by 600 pounds of two dudes, but that's my job. And if I take these guys out, that means JOK, that means Phillips, that means Taki. They're going to have the opportunity to make the play the way it was drawn up, the way it was scripted, by Joe Woods. So a player like that, they really need to get some sort of veteran guy who is proven on the interior of this defensive line.
Yeah, I love Harrison Phillips, man. Like I tweeted it out one random night. I was just thinking about it. I was like, "Yo, buddy, if you could find a way to just somehow just feel like robbery, but like if you could find a way to commit it, that'd be great." Nick, what's a guy on the top of your list?
I know people have strong feelings on this guy one way or the other, but I've always liked Allen Robinson. People who know me know that like I have a little pet team in Jacksonville down there, and I've liked him since those days. And I know Allen's struggled in recent years. He tore his ACL a couple of years ago, and then it really was a non-factor with Chicago this year. But he's always had quarterbacks that have struggled. And so I think, he's a guy that has fit into struggling offenses, and not that I expect the Browns to struggle, but it just seems like, when there's wide receivers that are demanding the ball and that kind of thing, there's just all this pressure. And I think that Allen fits into a lesser hostility than that. And so I really like Allen Robinson, and obviously we need a receiver. There's a lot of different ways to address it. I think he could be a good one.
I like Allen Robinson. I'm very interested when you talk about Allen Robinson about the money, like where does that fall? Jeff, do you got much thought on that kind of aspect of it with Allen Robinson?
I think the thing with Allen Robinson, which makes it difficult, and this is what's going to happen, as far as where the Browns are currently. Allen Robinson, look, at this point, he's looking for the forever home. Where am I going to go play my last 3 or 4 years? Understanding the situation in Cleveland here with Baker Mayfield. Look, it's not a knock on anything. Baker Mayfield may only be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in 2022. Does Allen Robinson want to get himself in this situation again? This is kind of similar to just what he went through the Bears. Figured it was Mitchell Trubisky. Turns out it wasn't. Then it was Justin Fields. It never really clicked with Justin Fields. If I'm Allen Robinson, it might be where I'm looking at I'll take a little bit less money, maybe for some guarantees where it'll be 3 years with an organization, and maybe with an organization where the quarterback position is a little bit more established. If Allen Robinson was interested, I'm not going to turn it down. But, and this is where it's difficult. If it's one of the top wide receivers in this free agent class, you've got to wonder how appealing the Cleveland Browns situation is. Yes, I walk in, I'm wide receiver 1. But yes, I may be playing with a quarterback that may not be here in year 2. Nobody knows how it's going to work out to this point. None of us do. But, this is something you have to look at. The other thing you have to look at is here's an offense that, number 1, likes to run the ball a lot. They have Nick Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt. They like to get their tight ends involved. They have a third-year wide receiver in Donovan Peoples-Jones. They have Anthony Schwartz, a player, obviously, that they coveted taking him in the top 100 the year before, and most likely going to take a wide receiver, if not round 1, if not round 2, top 75 again here. So you're walking into a position where there's a ton of competition. It's not a knock on Allen Robinson. And, I still think Allen Robinson's the same player he used to be, but I'm just not sure how appealing this situation is.
I had not thought about the quarterback instability when it comes to a player of his age.
That's a good point.
I'm really glad you brought up that aspect.
One thing with wide receivers is, yes, it's always about money, but the other thing is it's always about targets. You never want to be the wide receiver, and we've seen this prime example of this, guys. You never want to be the wide receiver who's making really, really good money, and everybody's got to say, well, let's rank the money. Let's rank the production. And we've already seen this be a problem in Cleveland.
We're seeing it right now.
I was definitely coming from a selfish place because I've always been a fan of him.
Listen, if Allen Robinson was interested, you're certainly not hanging up the phone. There's no way about it. But the question is whether or not this would be that appealing to him as to maybe other options where there's a lot more quarterback stability.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'm going to go in a direction that I don't know if anybody sees coming. Can I get Nijoku in Cleveland, please? I wrote an article for Dog Pound Daily, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and I put 3 targets I wanted in Cleveland in number 1, free agent targets, and number 1 was Nijoku. Like, some people are like, oh, he's a dome kicker. I don't know if he'll kick in the weather. Well, he's got a 90% career make percentage, and I'm going to take a shot on that. Like, I understand that, like, he's a dome kicker. I think his career long's only like a 54. You know what? Even if you say, I think he's got not as strong as a leg as some of these other guys, if he's making 90% of his kicks, even if it's a limited or range, like you're trying to keep him under 50 per chance, like I'm not saying that that's the case. How many times would the Browns have not gone for it later in the year on 4th down if they felt like their kicker could convert? Like, I genuinely think, like, early on in the year, I can remember McLaughlin making some long 55-yard field goals, and you could tell that there was the Stefanski was like, oh, I'm not too worried about it. We're before the half. It is what it is here. I'm going to kick this field goal. McLaughlin makes it. You go out and you're fine. And then later in the year, it was even when the offense was kind of falling apart, it put even more pressure on them because they knew it's like, we got to be perfect, man, because we got to get Chase either a 30-yard kick or we got to get it in the end zone. And then they had the COVID situation and the injuries and whatnot, and that was there. But I'll write a blank check to a kicker and I'll try to solve this problem right now.
You know what? Going for it on 4th down is amazing until you stop making it. And then Kevin Stefanski didn't stop going for it on 4th down. And it's hard to wonder how many times he might have just kicked it if he had a guy that he really had confidence in.
Part of it is just the simplicity of it. I mean, you go back to the AFC Championship game. One of the reasons the Kansas City Chiefs lost is they left 3 points on the board. And it wasn't so much that they were questioning their kicker. And I get it. This is kind of the era we live in where, you say, oh, these games are going to be played in the 30s. I'm not dismissing, what you said, Jacob, but for me, it looks like we're replacing both specialties. You're replacing your kicker, you're replacing your punter. Do you, and everybody I know, Dicker the kicker, yada, yada, yada. Do you want to put a rookie kicker in a situation where you think the Browns are going to play some very, very meaningful games? Which you really think. So do you want to put this on a rookie, or would you rather say, just give me a rookie punter where, just kick the ball as far as you can, kid, for, Koo? The question is going to be, and for him is, where Atlanta is at, do I maybe want to go play in some more meaningful games? He could be in a situation with the Falcons where it's like, well, what are we going to pay you $4 million a year for? We're maybe, granted the NFC South looks pretty good right now, but to be 9-8? You never know. But yes, if I'm going to spend money on one of 2 specialists, I'd rather spend money on a veteran kicker. I don't want to, I will not draft specialists. I can't stand it. It drives me absolutely crazy. But, spending money on a kicker that I think I have more confidence in, and I think, look, we can just turn our back to this and we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's very, very much a scenario that I can get on board with.
I was gonna say I'm very much a proponent of drafting the punt god. It's just where
Sure.
I am. I was not aware that I was going to fall in love with a punter this draft cycle, but here we are. So I totally get that. We did a mock last week, and Andy Manchin was on here with us, and he's of the same belief. He chugs beers and he doesn't draft kickers. And so he was like, hey, can I draft a punter? And he was like, no, you cannot. And he would not. And I was like, and just so everybody knows, if I was in charge here, I would be drafting a punter right now. But I totally get that. But you're right. Like a rookie punter, just go kick it far, man. Just kick it far. It is what it is. You just kick it as far as you can. Evan McPherson. That's the thing. Everybody's this Evan McPherson. Okay, that's great. But we also drafted Austin Seibert in the 5th round, and we drafted Zane Gonzalez. For every Evan McPherson, there's an Austin Seibert, and I really don't want to go down the road of Austin Seibert. And I know Seibert Zane Gonzalez got better after he left, but I'm not putting that in that situation, kind of like what you said. I'm with you 100% on that. So we'll circle back around. Jeff, what's your next guy?
For me, I looking at the wide receivers, and again, this is this thing where it's not. Again, where I don't think it's that of an appealing situation. For me, I look at a player like Cedric Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys. Look, Michael Gallup is there. He's a free agent as well. With these injured guys, in the case of Michael Gallup, what do these guys kind of do? And this applies to Chris Godwin too. You're coming back off an ACL injury. So what are you going to do? Basically, most likely you're looking at a 1-year deal because you're coming off an ACL. Are you going to go gamble on another franchise? Or are you going to stay with the team where you say, you know what? I know the system. I know my assignments. So the only thing I have to worry about is getting myself ready to play in the season. So I think 2 players like that, they're off the board. They're going to go back to where they came from. And everybody wants to talk Chris Godwin. My Lord, Chris Godwin's not going anywhere. The Bucs are ready to pay him and give him a legit contract. So, that is one unattainable asset that is not coming the Browns' way. Cedric Wilson, the 4th guy in Dallas. One thing we've seems like the Browns are trying to do is start to build, a wide receiver room where it's a little bit bigger guys, a little bit more taller, a little bit more thicker. Is there something they think there with Baker Mayfield? I don't know. But now we're starting to see this Browns regime finally build a wide receiver room to their liking. What you saw was Anthony Schwartz, an absolute blazer speed-wise, but you saw Donovan Peoples-Jones, a guy with size, a guy with a little physicality, guy able to catch some jump balls. I think Cedric Wilson could come in here, and I'm not saying he would be wide receiver 1 because I still don't believe the Browns are looking for a true traditional wide receiver 1. They are looking for guys that can get open. They're looking for guys that will block. Cedric Wilson will do that. There's some special team ability. Cedric Wilson will do that. You could get Cedric Wilson maybe in here for a 2-year, $13 million deal, maybe 9 guaranteed, but he's going to come in. He's a proven pass catcher. He's a proven contributor. He can be one of 4 wide receivers that make up a wide receiver room. This is a guy I really like and I think would be attainable for the Browns because he's going to come here, he's going to get some money, and he's certainly going to jump up in the pecking order that he was in Dallas.
It's certainly better than the secret era of Mike Holmgren and all the wide receivers can only be 5'10". That's their max.
That was
I really
it was an interesting strategy. It didn't really work out either, but
didn't go so well.
It was. I like Cedric Wilson a lot because I'm with you. I think that you're somewhere in. What did we talk about with the defensive tackle? I think it's of the same ilk where they're looking. I'm not looking for a defensive tackle to do everything. Get me a run stuffer, and then get me one that can rush the passer like Jordan Elliott for 3rd down, and we'll rotate those guys through. And we'll do those kind of things. Yeah, it makes me think of 2018's receiving core. They just got it done. Yeah. Baker Mayfield you said this all the time, Jeff. It doesn't matter what number you wear. If you're open, 6 will find you. Like that was what it was in 2018. That's what it was in 2020.
Rashad Perriman, what a story.
I still
remember laughing about that and going, I think it was the Chief game, and going afterwards that we were doing the post-game show, and well, if we can find a way to get Brashard Perriman involved a little bit more. And I'm like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
But it was part of what led
Yeah.
to a really, really promising 2018 year. Yeah.
And then it worked. It didn't make any sense. It just somehow it worked. And I'm going to skip you, Nick, because I want to build off of that, and then I'll jump right back to your guy. So I'm sorry I'm being mean. Because I want to talk about that kind of thing. I like DJ Chark. That's my guy. That's my put him in there. 6'4", 198. Like I think that's a very interesting build and size. A little bit of a bigger guy in terms of the height situation. Can really go up and get it, which is interesting because when Baker has missed lately, it's been high. So like a guy like him, a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, what was his? I got to bring it up. His Chark was one of the faster guys in his combine class as well. So like he's got that he's got the size and the ability to actually stretch this field vertically. We have not seen someone stretch the field vertically in the last 2 seasons, and it's handicapped the arm talent.
No, because you throw underneath routes to Austin Hooper first. Who threw short routes to set up the deep routes? You throw deep to set up the short, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I had to get that out.
No, you're 100% right though. Like it's so ass backwards. It's like, what do you? But like I'm thinking, if you can get like a Cedric Wilson, you can get a DJ Chark. You can just give me somebody that can draw that safety over just a little bit. Let David Najoku work in there. Because DPJ is not like he's not slow. Like he can do these sort of things too. But if you can kind of pull some of this, you could stretch it a little bit, get a bigger target who can go up and get the football, he only played 4 games last year. So you're looking at it may only be a 1-year deal, and that may be what they're looking to do. But you may be able to get him on a 1-year deal and bring him in here and be like, yeah, we'll give you $7 million. Kind of similar. I wouldn't think the money would be the same as what they gave Clowney, but like a similar situation in terms of like, here's an incentive-laden deal. If you can play and play well, we can do it. Like find a way to stretch this field just a little bit vertical, just a little bit of size, somebody that can go up and get the football. Then get me literally, I am so in love with like 6 wide receivers, 7, I think, wide receivers in this draft. I don't care which one, whichever one is your favorite flavor, as I've heard you say a million times. Go get them. And we'll feast. Just get one of these middle tier guys. Nick, what do you got for me?
Well, you know what? Building off of that, there was like that signature play that the Browns ran a bunch of different times in 2020 that was super successful. The play action boot, and the receiver just literally goes vertical. Like it was so simple. And before Odell got hurt, they did it successfully to him a couple different times. And then they ran it with Donovan Peoples-Jones. And it was like you really felt like the Browns offense was open. Even though we came to find out just how close it was later on in the year, but for a while, you saw that verticality that really shined through with Baker from his rookie year, and so I was so encouraged by that, and so I'm hoping that whether it's Anthony Schwartz or whoever, that they find a guy that really stretches the field. I had to build off of that because
no, you're right, you're 100%.
But as far as my guy here, I like to look at like what Andrew Berry's done already, and I could kind of see him digging into the veteran defensive tackle pool again, because he's done that with Malik Jackson and Malik McDowell, and McDowell's a little bit of a different situation. But and so I was thinking that Akeem Hicks has long been a great piece of that Bears defense that, actually was a lot better than they got credit for. Is just the offense couldn't do its part, and eventually the Bears defense just was ground in the dust. But honestly, Akeem Hicks I think is a really interesting piece, because it kind of fits the mold of what Barry's done before, and he's been very productive with Chicago. So I think, if you're going to go veteran defensive tackle again, Akeem Hicks makes a lot of sense.
And I think when you look at a defensive tackle, you just always got to remember what they get to go next to if they come here. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll always remember, like, hey, yeah, you're a good football player. How good of a football player next to Myles Garrett are you going to be? Like, so even if it's one of those, like a younger player or an older player that only comes on a 1 or a 2 year deal and is looking to cash in again, maybe coming off of a down year, whatever it may be, I mean, look at what if he leaves, look at what Jadeveon Clowney did. Look at him coming in, and I mean, listen, Clowney played his ass off. He was everything and more that we could have hoped he was going to be when we signed him. But he made himself a lot of money this year. And Myles Garrett had a very large part to do with the amount of money that he made this year. You know, obviously Clowney made himself some money, but I think we get where we are. Jeff, do you got any thoughts on Hakeem Hicks?
I'm okay on the interior, and the thing I like with Hakeem Hicks is he also brings something on 3rd and 4th down. So you would look at him as where he would probably be, you know, the defensive tackle. Because look, you know, with McKinley, with Jadeveon Clowney, with Myles Garrett, I don't think that's going to change for the Browns. I think they want to basically get their business handled on 1st and 10, and then get to the point where we can get the slow linebackers off the field, get the 3rd safety on the field. Let's get 3 defensive ends, whether it's Myles on the inside, Jadeveon, fingers crossed, hopefully on the inside, another DN on the outside. Try to play as fast as possible. You got to keep in mind you're in the AFC. You're facing Lamar Jackson twice a year. You know, ideally, you're going to have to get through Josh Allen to eventually get to a Super Bowl. You're going to have to get through Patrick Mahomes. You need players on the field who have foot speed that can contend with these types of guys. You know, Joe Burrow's a little different, a little slippery, can run a little bit, but you need to get faster. I mean, even for the Cincinnati Bengals, they have 3 quality wide receivers. You can't have essentially slugs on the field. You don't need these bulldozers. Get it done on 1st and 10, and then Joe Woods gets to what he wants to get to, which is 3 safeties, 3 corners, 2 linebackers, and just get going to business.
Jeff, I did want to ask you because there's a lot of question marks for me, at least at the defensive tackle position. And I know, you know, we're already neck deep in it. And so I don't think we've seen like a lot from Jordan Elliott yet. And obviously not from Tommy Togiai. And I was just curious to, you know, before the Browns make any moves, what you think of the guys that we do have.
Jordan Elliott, you know, for me, he's more of a question at this point, I would say, than Tommy Togiai is. Tommy Togiai, you saw limited last year. You had Malik Jackson, you had Malik McDowell, you had Jordan Elliott. So Togiai was in this tough spot. They were playing Sheldon Day a lot. Tommy Togiai, I think he can be more of an answer early on in 1st and 10. I don't think the Browns are just going to say, okay, we're going to trust this guy we drafted in the 5th round last year. We're going to give it to him. Jordan Elliott, look, and sometimes, you know, with interior play, whether it's offensive line, guards and centers, or whether it's defensive tackles, 3rd year is the year where maybe the light goes on and all of a sudden the player starts to develop. But to this point, the Browns, look, if they find a way where they can find 2 veteran defensive tackles that are willing to come to this team, I think they're going to write those checks. I don't think they can bank on either Elliott or Togiai to this point. If both of them play better, it's just an absolute, you know, it's a win for them, but I don't think they're in the position. And look, you know, every organization, and it's not to knock what the work they've done to this point, because they have done tremendous work to this point, Andrew Berry and his staff. But you wonder, you know, is this maybe a position where they're having some issues with evaluation? And, you know, do they have to go back and question their process as opposed, you know, to what they think, you know, a player who's going to be, you know, on the rise as far as, you know, somebody that they can bring in and will develop. Elliott, we haven't seen it yet. Togiai, limited to this point. But this is a position, and look, you know, you brought in Malik Jackson, you brought in Malik McDowell. This didn't solve running against that defense. They were all basically the same guys. They need to find a way to accumulate somebody who's either established in the run stuffer role or draft somebody who is, because this has been an issue through 2 years. And look, again, it's not a knock. You're not going to get everything right. You're not going to knock everything out of the park. But this is something they seriously need to address, because in 2020, there were games where they got leaned on by the opposing running game. The Raiders game is a prime example. And we saw last year where there were times where they couldn't stop the run in situations where they absolutely needed to stop the run.
Against bad teams like Pittsburgh in terms of running.
Of course.
I think one of my favorites is, I think, DJ Jones. I think he makes a lot of sense because I'm just not sure they're going to be able to keep him in San Francisco. I think just give me what Andrew Billings was supposed to be. I just need a big dude that is going to eat blocks and get in the way. I don't care what his statistics say. His statistics aren't going to say much. That's fine. Just don't be driven 5 yards back. I can't watch another year of my defensive tackles being driven past my linebackers. I just can't. I just don't. That's where I'm at on that. We're going to bring Ed on real quick. He's got some good questions for us, and go for it before we shift the little bit back half to the draft real quick before we get you out of here. It's been a really brisk 40 minutes.
What happened?
What the hell happened to that? All right, we're going to bring Ed on. Ed,
welcome to me every day as I get all my messages from the folks that Locked On. Jeff, could you keep it under 50 minutes? I had no idea it was 47, guys. I had no idea.
My bad. I apologize. Ed,
What's
what
up,
do you
guys? I got to give a shout out to MC Lawrence and Rocco. They're loyal listeners. And also, we had a guy, some slow grind in here. Dearness Johnson was in here for a little bit listening to us. So shout out to Dearness.
Hi, Dearness.
Former Locked On Browns guest.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. But usually we do a segment right now where it's go for it. But I'm going to switch it up a little bit because in about 15 minutes, the President of the United States will be giving the State of the Union. So I'm going to make you guys all go for it like Kevin Stefanski would do. And I'm going to ask you guys within a couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you guys, what is the current state of the Cleveland Browns? And you can go wherever you want, however you want to take it. But what I'm looking for kind of is, we talk about this team and we have high expectations. I know come August, it's Super Bowl or bust as much as, that's how we are as fanatics, and that's fine. That's why we love the Cleveland Browns. But realistically, where are we at right now? What do we need to do to get where we need to be? And I think that's Super Bowl, because come on. Yeah. And so you guys take it away because we're going for it. There isn't a choice here. We're going for it. So let's go for it. The state of the Browns.
I'll do mine real quick because it's going to be really short and quick. I've did some reflection on the year, and I know it was all doom and gloom, and it was all these bad things, and all this stuff happened. There seems to have been more locker room dysfunction than we knew about, and we'll never know about. We know maybe somebody will write a book, maybe he won't write a book. That was a Hugh Jackson joke. It didn't land. It was horrible. But maybe we'll learn one day about it. But there was all of these injuries and COVID and your quarterback losing an arm and your wide receiver one leaving in the middle of the season. And it was an outbreak of COVID. Just everything that could go wrong went wrong, and they were 8-9. Like absolutely everything was a disaster. It felt like they were 8-9. You get better. You get average quarterback play, and that's a playoff team. It's not doom and gloom, guys. Andrew Berry knows what he is doing. Trust the process. They're fine. Jeff?
I'll jump in here. And for me, the first thing I think of is, and everybody, the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. If I'm the Browns, I'll play the Cincinnati Bengals anytime, any day, anywhere. What the Cincinnati Bengals and the issues they had, you saw it in the Super Bowl. It's what ended up being the reason they lost the game. The Browns, and this is where, I know everybody was so frustrated with the offense through, out the 2021 season. And again, look, I don't want to hear, that, it can't be an excuse. This was a guy who was lighting it up in 2020 in Baker Mayfield. And then early in 2021 was lighting it up again. And obviously the injury happened. Was he scared to get hit? Did it hurt that bad? I mean, we're talking about a quarterback who literally used the phrase, if my broken shoulder can heal, then it'll stop popping out of the socket so many times.
Yeah.
That tells me it's a pretty grave injury. But what the one thing that people are misconstruing about the 2021 season was the overall growth of this defense. The secondary. This team has 5 cornerbacks that they really like, 2 safeties that they really like. Not many teams in the NFL right now are saying we are 7 strong in the secondary. The Browns are. The Browns obviously love Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Jacob Phillips is a player they really, really like. You pray for a year where he does not have to deal with injuries. We know what Myles Garrett can be. Jadeveon Clowney, it's a wild card. Look, Jadeveon Clowney, kind of all about the Benjamins, and Jadeveon Clowney's kind of all about himself. It's a real tough call to make. You hope he comes back. You want him to come back. You understand it's going to be more of a monetary, compensation than it was last year. But you also understand if you're the Browns, hey, you've always had an issue as far as your health and your availability. We found a way to make this all work where you played a substantial amount of games. So you hope that works. But, some tweaks on offense, a healthier Baker Mayfield, looks like you're going to return 4/5, if not 5/5 of that offensive line. You still got Chubb, you still got Hunt, and that's one thing that a lot of people do not want to speak on is how much Kareem Hunt, the time he missed, hurt this team. Kareem Hunt is a significant contributor to this Browns offense. He missed a ton of time last year. Not knocking him, but I'm just saying it's something that people don't talk about. The lack of availability from Kareem Hunt and the role that he's given this Browns over the last couple of years, it's something big. I don't think, even that 8-9, yeah, it's not pretty. The whole Odell situation is not pretty. I guarantee you right now, if those teams were finding a way to get through these issues and winning games, the Odell situation would have never happened. Odell would have finished the season here. But look, for anybody who thinks the Browns are far off, no problem. Sell me your shares. I'll buy them all up.
I'm right behind you. Yeah.
So Jeff,
tired. I want to shut up and take my money. What's the
100%.
So sum it up. Jeff Llyod says the state of the union, or state of the Browns, is still strong. Is that what we're saying?
I have zero questions making that statement.
Yep.
I think I'm in a place where my state of the Browns is in identity crisis because by all accounts, 2020 was a huge breakthrough year, right? You think very similar to the quarterback, like they've finally turned the corner. This is going to be the beginning of ascending to, being a competitive, consistently good franchise. And then obviously you regress significantly in 2021. And so I think, Baker has a breakthrough and then Baker goes back to the mean. Kevin Stefanski wins Coach of the Year, and then suddenly everyone's questioning his leadership. The locker room likes Baker so much they're having him work quotes into his pressers, and then there's just turmoil and everyone hates the quarterback and they only support the receiver who's in LA, right? So you're at such a crossroads between these two extremes that have happened in the past two seasons, and I think the Browns have the opportunity to right all of those fears, or they have the opportunity to confirm them, and kind of everything hangs in the balance right now. So I think this is their year where they have to show that last year was the fluke. And that 2020 is the beginning of this new Browns era led by Stefanski and Barry, rather than suddenly everything is spinning. You paid all these guys and now they're aging by another year. How did we waste all this time? Like that's you cannot go back to that. You can't. So this is the year you have to take that identity, the new one.
And you think they're going to take that?
I do.
Okay. I was a little confused where you were on that. Like I wasn't sure where you were going.
I guess you know what? I was building up the thought in my mind, and then as I was saying it, I was like, I thought about it, because obviously I come off really positively with all my stuff, but there's always possibility that things could end in disaster. So I'm like debating, but no, I'm choosing to believe in Baker and this regime. It's run by smart people. The Browns will figure it out.
There you go, Ed.
I'm going to answer my own question and say the state of the Browns is strong because of Andrew Barry, and I do believe in Kevin Stefanski. Yes. And you know what? Honestly, I know I get a lot of hate for it, but I do believe in Baker Mayfield because that guy is he's strong, he's tough, and he wants to win. He wants to be in Cleveland. I think there's something to be said about that. And he's had success under Stefanski, and I don't think that can be, overlooked as well. I think, like to Jeff's point, when you're injured and things hurt, that wide receiver downfield that's open, maybe you're not throwing it to him because you see a 300-pound guy coming at you and you don't want to hurt again. Because, I've never played in the NFL, but it's a hurt game. It's a train wreck every play. So the state of the Browns is strong. You guys are all good Patriots. Thanks for playing, and God bless America and the Ukraine. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. We'll talk.
That was awesome, Ed.
100%.
All right. Okay, so what I want to do to wrap this thing up here, as we're coming up, we always said like we're going to do our off season around an hour, and then it's always like this hour and 10, hour and 15, or usually
So
somewhere.
it's a nice goal to have.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just not realistic. So we will go with what I want to do is I've got three drafts. I'm going to do 3 of my favorite draft prospects, and then I'll have Nick give a couple of his. And I just want your opinion on them, Jeff, because me and Nick have already had a lot of these conversations. So I just want to kind of talk about some of the guys that I really, really like. Where I want to start, will you rank the first round wide receivers for me, like just the order where you have them?
All right. Well, just taking, injury and that type of thing out of it.
Okay.
If we're just going on pure talent, it's Jameson Williams. I'm sorry. Jameson Williams is the top wide receiver in this class, because you take in mind what he did at Alabama. You take in mind the fact that he is playing against, players who are all going to be in the NFL week in, week out. If they ain't covering you on Saturday, these same guys ain't covering you on Sunday. I really think he is that special. Wilson Olave. And, we kind of went in this the other day. I joined Nathan Segar and the guys on Cleveland Browns Daily. I think Garrett Wilson's a fantastic player. I do. And I also think that Chris Olave is a fantastic player. It's kind of what is your flavor? For me, I think Chris Olave is just smooth, consistent. And I don't want to say Cooper Kupp because there's no way in any way whatsoever I would ever put that on a rookie. Yeah. But I think with a guy like, Chris Olave, it's going to be one of these things where we're going to look back 2 years from now and say, well, he caught 160 passes, over 2,000 yards, almost 20 touchdowns. Like, for the people who aren't with Chris Olave, it just seems that, is the issue that he's too safe. And this happens a lot in the draft process. But here's a guy, he's still not even 22 years old. He won't be 22 till 2 months after the draft. So you're not concerned about age by any means whatsoever for a guy who did 4 years at Ohio State. Wilson, the ups of his game certainly get to you. You like it. The jump ball ability, the ability for a smaller guy to go up and moss people. So for me, I'm okay with either Ohio State wide receiver as my 2 or 3, whichever way you want to put it. Burks, there's some things that you do maybe have a little bit of concerns about, just as far as, is because he's not going to run well in Indy. And when guys don't run well, and as far as 40 time, it comes down to one thing and one thing only. How quick is your get off? How quick is your first step? And for a long strider, it doesn't usually work this way. He's not Randy Moss. He's not an anomaly. But as the momentum goes down the field, 2 strides equals 5.5, 6 yards. He's a bigger guy. Is this something the Browns want, or do they want more precision? Do they want you are going to be there within X amount of seconds? 2.1, 2.2, yada, 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 yada. So, but I do think Burks is there. London, for me, is the tough one because we're not going to we may get a pro day. And, I do like him. I do. And I understand what everybody's saying because they're separate. When you're 6'4", separation is the fact that you're 6'4". I am taller than you. I am longer than you. Therefore, that is my separation. Because guess what? Even if you're on me, my quarterback can throw it 14 inches above your head. I can get it, and you can't. I think it's a great group. I think as much as we all want to beat these guys to death, if we're talking about 5 guys, and I will put Dotson in there from Penn State, I'd put these guys into a blender. I'm not necessarily sure that I think there's some guys that the Browns probably don't have interest in. Treylon Burks may be one of those guys. Drake London may be one of those guys. I think Olave. I think Garrett Wilson. I think Dotson. I did the show today, and I don't care. And I try to get myself out of this. And then John Costco got me in it again today. Look, if I can sign a veteran wide receiver, I'll draft Jameson Williams at 13. I don't care. Yeah. If he misses September, I'll deal with it. Maybe there's a chance he does it. I will deal with it. I just feel he's that dynamic. But I think these bigger guys where it's going to be a little bit different as far as when they get open, how quickly they get open. And for me, as always, when I talk about Baker Mayfield, it's hit the plan step, quick, bang, you're open, go. And if there's some of these guys are going to delay this process, I'm not sure they're the best fit for the Browns. Look, Donovan Peoples-Jones, you would consider him a bigger wide receiver. I know he's not really, really big, but they kind of have that guy. And you saw progression here in year 2. But it's a really, really fascinating group. I think they're going to differ in ways in how they succeed in the NFL. Your guys like Burks, your guys like London, they may not be reception guys who are just going to run it up. They may be guys who have, higher yards per catch, more yards, more touchdowns. And for me, and I've said it, and I've said it for a while now. Look, Jameson Williams would be my guy, but I think Chris Olave just makes a seamless transition into this offense. There's the hole. That's where you need to be, and you need to be there in 1.3 seconds. And from what I see from Coach Olave, he seems to get it done almost every single time.
You're one of the main spearheads that has got me back to Jameson Williams because
I don't care. I don't care. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've heard you guys talk about it, and it's like before the injury, he was the guy for me. And so, like, the more people talk about it, and then some people are like, yeah, he's going to be back week 1. I'm like, if you even think there's a shot he's back week 1, I'm just taking it. Like, that's fine. That kid can play. Like, and so, like, man. Every
and you
time
look
I
at
hear
it,
somebody
look,
say
if you draft him at 13 overall, and what is it, 34, 68, it's 85 games. If you're drafting a wide receiver at 13, it's 85 games. So you're saying, so what? Right off the bat, we're only guaranteed 81. If that's enough, that's going to change the fact whether or not you take him. That's a you problem. Because if you think he's not good enough for business because he's going to miss right off the bat 4 out of 85, nah, for me, look, he's electric. Yeah. And, and Stephen Thomas, damn him for, it was like we sat and watched him for a little bit, and he's like, are you getting a little bit of like Josh Gordon vibes? And for me, it was like, oh, and it is. I mean, double covered, knowing how to accelerate, de-accelerate. You saw just the tenacity of him being a gunner on that team of all things, being a gunner for God's sakes, covering punts and excelling at it. Jameson Williams, man, there's a special talent there, and you start to look for guys who are on the up. And keep in mind, Jameson Williams barely played. So you look at what he did last year for Alabama, and you think, man, there's a really good possibility. This kid is just scratching the surface of who he is as a player. But you saw slants, the fact that his speed is just that good. Look, Miami, they may suck now as a football program, but it doesn't mean their guys aren't fast. And taking angles on them, and these guys didn't even have a chance.
I'm back. I'm all the way back. We're all the way back, Jeff. We're all the way back. Give me Jameson Williams. I don't give a shit.
It's so hard to you look at all these teams that have found their alpha guy, from like Justin Jefferson to AJ Brown to Jamar Chase now, and Deebo Samuel is different, but so it's like so many of these guys have just come in and like completely changed the dynamic of an entire offense. And it's like I just look at that and I'm like, I want that. That's what we thought Odell Beckham was going to be for the Browns offense. And that's why I celebrated like we won the Super Bowl when we traded for him. And it's just
in the most game changer to me is Jameson Williams because Garrett Wilson had Chris Olave, had Smith and Jigba. You not to take away from any of those other guys. Yeah. But if you're talking about the one guy that is the biggest game changer to give you a Justin Jefferson, to give you a Jamar Chase, yeah, it is. It's Jameson Williams.
I honestly think if there's any reasonable chance that this guy isn't missing his entire rookie season, which it sounds like, the way you guys are talking, like we're not even talking about missing games.
But if you want to use an example, if you want to use a quick example, George Pickens from Georgia, he tore his ACL in March. He was back by late November. So keep in mind, Jameson Williams, you're talking almost 2.5 months earlier.
Okay.
And, it's possible. Look, I don't want to rush the guy back and say, oh, we need him back week 1. But if you tell me it's September, over 5 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm more than okay with that.
Because if you think he's that much better, it doesn't. What does it matter if you're talking about half a season or whatever? We've seen, what just half a season can do, and now the season's even longer to begin with. So all the more reason, like if that guy's the best one, because I was going to talk about Drake London, you know what I'm saying, and just that size, right? And we've referenced that a bunch of times, but listening to you guys rave, I don't even know.
It's been about a 4-day process. Honest to God, these last 4 days, people will pop up in my timeline. They're like, "Hey, watch some more tape of Jameson Williams," and I'm just like, "Oh, you're gonna bring me back in, aren't you, man?" Like, I can remember seeing like just how many times. Just think about this. This is what my favorite part to think about. How many times did you either tweet or see someone tweet, "My goodness, Jameson Williams again"? Like, how many times against the SEC did he literally take a game that was stagnant or going against Alabama or put it away for Alabama, where he just went from here's where the game is to Jameson Williams just ran by 8 dudes. He just ran by a secondary. You want to talk about speed? You want to talk about getting vertical acceleration? You want to talk about quick hitters that he turns into big ones so that Baker can get the ball out of his head? Yeah. And we're all the way back on this show, man. We're all the way back on Jameson
Juiced
Williams.
up over here thinking about it.
I'm gonna watch. I'm writing an article for Dog Pound Daily this evening, just a news article for that'll come out tomorrow, and I'm gonna be watching Jameson and Williams highlights while I do it after we get off here. Nick, do you have a specific player or two that you want to ask Jeff about? Because I've got one more, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay. I am wondering if it's a good idea to continue that Sooner pipeline and Perrion Winfrey makes sense, because I'm kind of share your sentiments where I very so on the Browns defensive tackle situation, and so it seems like that could be a guy that could help fix that problem.
This Perrion Winfrey would be very, very interesting, and he would be a very, very good addition. But you're going to need that anchor. Look, what everybody got excited about Perrion Winfrey down in Mobile. Here would be the deal, though. If the Browns were in the situation where he was your best defensive tackle, yeah, you ain't getting those plays, because guess what? There's going to be 2 people on him. He is going to need some sort of anchor to, consume space. Because what you saw with Winfrey was, first step ability, being able to shoot the gap ability. That's not going to happen when you're the top dog at defensive tackle. You tell me we go out and we get a 320-pound defensive tackle who can absorb blocking, can take on double teams. Yeah, I'm in on Perrion Winfrey. But taking him, bringing him in, and thinking he solely is going to be the one that solves the issue, no, he's going to need a legit running mate. Maybe down the line, him and Tommy Togiai could be a nice pairing that works. But after 2 years and this being an issue, you can't just say that's enough. Not a knock on Winfrey, but he kind of needs the wingman. He needs the wingman.
Gotta have the right fit. Okay.
Winfrey's like that. Like, I like Winfrey if you get like DJ Jones, BJ Hill, Harrison Phillips, something like that.
Somebody that's going to allow him. Because you got to keep in mind, Winfrey is going to play more in tune to the Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, the Jacob Phillips, and certainly Myles Garrett, where you're really, really quick and anticipatory. That's where Winfrey's going to come in. But you kind of need, you need a bouncer. You need a dirty guy to do the dirty work to allow these guys to shoot gaps and let their athletic ability, shine. Otherwise, Perrion Winfrey, keep in mind, look, Joe and Wyattell, they're great players, but there's a lot of great interior players in this NFL. Perrion Winfrey alone against a grown man like Joe Bitonio, against a grown man like Wyatt Teller, those situations probably aren't going to go as good as they looked down at Mobile. You kind of need that thug, that ogre in the middle, somebody that's going to absorb the nonsense, the mess, so you can allow all these athletic players to just go be athletes.
Okay. That's my favorite idea, is these athletes just truly being athletes. That just my guy that I like a lot. I wanted to get we talked about Wyatt Teller. I believe that he went to the Wyatt Teller School of Nastiness, but a guy that I think I have seen him in such a wide range I'm thinking he's probably sneaking somewhere into day 2, somewhere in the back end. I really like Tyler Smith, the Tulsa tackle. He's nasty. He's mean. Like, it's just, I go back and Stephen Thomas says it all the time. Watch his best games. Well, let me go against the good teams, the games against the good teams. And so I go back and watch him against Ohio State. And it's just like, he was a Big Ten tackle in that game. He wasn't a Tulsa tackle. He's a Big Ten tackle in the game. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts on Tyler Smith. He's like my offensive line darling for me personally.
Look, I mean, if we're going to throw Browns wise out the window, which is what you're going to do with Tyler Smith, because it'd be a complete disservice to bring Tyler Smith here to the Browns right now. Obviously, James Hudson, you worked it out with Conklin. You have Cedric Wilson. And it was funny, though, because we were right around that period we were waiting for the final declaration list, and Tyler Smith was one of those guys. Reached out, shoot him a message. Oh, yeah, man, I have no idea why this information is not out there yet. But, yeah, no, absolute, badass. I question if maybe he'll stay at the left side long term. And I think I would maybe prefer him playing right tackle because it's going to be a lot more. I think you'll see the best of him there. Kind of like Michael Orr, the blind side, where Tyler, stop. You're at the side of the you're at the fence, you're at the bleachers. Let go of the man now. You've already killed him. You've humiliated him. We're getting to the point now where maybe they're going to press charges against you. He's a mean old cuss. He plays with a mean streak. Would he fit with the way this Browns offensive line is currently constructed? Absolutely, because I think he and Wyatt Teller would play off each other beautifully. Like, all right, well, you dropped 3 guys on that play. All right, so now I'm going to go drop 4 players on the next play. I really, really like Tyler Smith. And this is this weird time now, especially during the draft process, because our guys are starting to get anointed. But as we've known and we've seen in the years past, some of those battleships essentially get sunk this week because you start to see athleticism numbers that don't match up. Or you start to see you put an offensive lineman on the bench and he throws up 14 reps at 225. So you wonder about inner core strength. But Tyler Smith from Tulsa, loves to play, loves to be physical. There's no way I see it working for the Browns, but I'm sure Bill Callahan's going to be in there poking people. Well, if you can get me an extra pick at this range, I'd love to bring him in. He's a great player, tenacious, mean, physical, and bully to him, which you love in an offensive lineman. There's no doubt he's got all those traits.
Yeah, I realize that the more and more that it's probably that it doesn't make
the Conklin restructure, unless JC Treader and something happens there that they move on, I'm not sure that there's going to be much to all activity within that offensive line room, especially if there's a possibility you bring back a guy like Chris Hubbard. If that's the case, they may be done there. Hudson is going to be your swing tackle. You have Nick Harris. I know a lot of people want to talk offensive line for the Browns. I just don't know that that's necessarily going to be something they're going to really be broaching at.
I think for me, when I mock the tackles, it's with the idea that I'm not sure Chris Hubbard's back. But if Chris Hubbard's back, there's not.
But even still, though, are you going to? Even still, are you going to draft somebody top 100 to be your 4th tackle? You have Blake Hance here. He played better on the left side, weirdly enough, than he did on the right side. But look, if you're down to your 4th tackle, that's a problem within of itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jeff, I think my favorite thing you said in this whole show is that the Browns are closer than you think. Because, it's like we start digging into this and you really, the more we talk about it, I think the more you realize, like if you put the Browns roster up against the Bengals roster and take out the quarterbacks, but if you just looked at them, I don't think that you would favor the Bengals in all that many positions overall. It definitely, gives me hope.
And the thing with the Bengals is look, you're going to have to redo that offensive line. They're going to probably change four starters on that offensive line. And this was a team that couldn't deal with Myles Garrett. Look, and for the Browns, the most important domino this entire offseason is Jadeveon Clowney. And the Browns are in a really crappy spot with that because Jadeveon Clowney isn't a guy that normally is going to let his intentions known be right away. And the Browns need answers. Like the Browns really need an answer from Jadeveon Clowney before free agency opens. They need it. They literally have to have it. Are they going to get it? Most likely not. Probably not. It's just the way Jadeveon Clowney rolls. It is who he is, and like I can't fault him for it because he's always been this way. I think he's a guy who is really, really good at football, enjoys playing football. I don't think there's any way whatsoever that football consumes his life. I don't think that's the case. But the Browns, if they could get an answer from Jadeveon Clowney one way or another as quick as possible, that will be the biggest key for them to putting together the most successful offseason that they can.
I have one more question for you, and that is a hot dog a sandwich?
Look, for me, it's simple. Is there some sort of thing between two things that are of the bread family? A hot dog is a sandwich. A hamburger is a sandwich. Look, if there is a piece of something bread-like on either side, then yes, it's a sandwich. Folks, it's easy. It is just as easy. I don't know why I have to discuss these things. I don't understand how this one has ever gone on this long. Look, if you're eating a hot dog on a plate, it is not a sandwich. If there's any type of bread-like substance, that in turn makes it a sandwich. And take it from me, who was a guy poor as hell, broke as hell in college, eating hot dog rolls with mustard and ketchup because we didn't have money for hot dogs. We had not dogs. Yes, that too was a sandwich.
Oh, that's definitely a sandwich because then you're just putting the
If the bread's involved, it's a sandwich.
Well,
it is just that simple.
I grew up where you didn't have hot dog buns. You had a piece of white bread and you put a hot dog.
Oh, sure. And it's still a sandwich because there was a bread involved.
Yep. It was a sandwich.
But when it's a V, it's definitely a bun. Like that's a bun.
Yep.
It's
no, but the worst part, how about the
bun.
worst part though, when you started making the hot dogs and realized you didn't have any rolls? Oh God, do we have any Wonder Bread? All right, Last Chance Saloon.
Like if you said it's a hot dog or taco, I could be more down with a hot dog being a taco than I could with a sandwich.
A taco's a sandwich because whatever you're using is yes, a taco's a sandwich.
What are we doing? Oh God.
It would be the Hispanic form of a sandwich. Dude, do you take scrambled eggs and do you take breakfast meat and throw it in a tortilla? Yes. They don't really have bread in the Hispanic culture. Guess what they have? They have tortillas. It's no different. If you're wrapping it in something that is made of flour, it is a sandwich.
Boom.
My
And
brain is like
that puts a capper on episode 45. Jeff, thank
The
you.
most important point of this episode, apparently.
Jeff.
I want to thank. We'll bring Ed on here. Jeff, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Can you, before we get off here, just tell everybody where they can find all your stuff.
Well, obviously, Locked On Browns. We go daily here. This will be a different week here. We'll go every single day as the combine will go throughout the weekend. What started, when I started covering Locked On Browns in 2017, the team wasn't very successful. This wasn't a good product. Like what this show became and the success I've had over almost 5 years now was building and talking about the offseason, talking about free agency, talking about the draft. This is what, built the show for me. And obviously as great as 2020 was and as disappointing as 2021 was, this is our time. I've always enjoyed this process. I've enjoyed this process since I was a kid. I was a guy who I would never do my homework, but I would bust my ass to do everything I needed to do to make sure, because the NFL draft, when I was young, guys, was on a Monday morning. What? On a Monday morning back in the days when the NFL draft was. So I had to bust my ass to either do schoolwork or fake sick so I could watch the NFL draft, which took place on a Monday. That's back when they had the old helmet phones and and the picks went in. But this is what led to the growth of Locked On Browns. Obviously available wherever your podcasts are available. At Jeff_LJ_Llyod, the show itself at Locked On Browns. It's just been a pleasure. And for something that started off for me as a little bit of a hobby to the point where it's grown now to the fact that I get a message the other day, hey, could you pop on Cleveland Browns Daily the other day? And I'm thinking I felt like I was looking at somebody else's phone. Like, this is me, right? They're asking me to come on. It's just a fun ride. Look, for you guys, obviously, this is something you look forward to. It's just something you do. Like, look, people, whether you play D&D, whether you play Texas Hold'em with your friends once a week or whatever, this stuff becomes addicting and it's something you enjoy. And, when you put a ton of work in, you guys have seen some success, obviously. And it just gives you wow, it's just something you can hang your hat on at the end of the day. We all have, whatever aspects of our lives there are, but it's always nice to still have something, little corner of your life, that is yours, something you could put into, something that's unique about you. It's an absolute pleasure. I mean, talking with a bunch of, fools like yourselves, just like me and everybody I talk to, whether it's John Costco, Pete Smith, Stephen Thomas, Brent Sobleski, we're all a bunch of fans at the end of the day. But, in this day and age, there is so much information out there. You are allowed to be so much more of an educated fan, educated analyst. And you see it. And, there's people I love to talk to on social media. There's people I never want to talk to again on social media who tell me that Mitchell Trubisky would walk in day one and be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. These are the people that drive me insane. But at the end of the day, it's a nice release. It gets you away from the overall stress, everything we do. It's just an absolute pleasure. It's a blast.
You know what? So the first year of our show was over last season, and obviously it had a lot of highs and lows. And I never really realized it until I started doing that, because you could like tweet about it, listen to the radio, whatever podcast you listen to. But nothing, for me at least, was as cathartic as just being able to come on here and just talk about it. So I've really grown to love that.
Let it out.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're a very free-flowing show, so half the time we pop on here, we don't even know where it's going to go. But then by the end, it just, whether it's winning or losing, it just feels so much better.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, with Pete Smith, and I mean, probably going on 4 years now, I do not tell Pete a thing. There is nothing mentioned before we go. And I'm like, you good? You good? All right. Record button goes on. So, but this is the thing, though. I mean, and obviously, as you guys know, as much as you talk, the rapport is there. And look, what's on each other's mind. And like every now and then, what softball you can throw up so the other one's going to crush it, or where you can really agitate the other one by saying, well, you're wrong, because there was that day where he did have 2.5 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. And and the bottom line for a lot of us that do this is, this cures a lot of things. We may not come in here and talk about what has been difficult for us, or, what made so-and-so day a bad day. But you come in here, you do these types of things, you walk away feeling better. And you know what it is? It's just finding a way to, find some time for you, which is certainly over the last 2 years with everything everybody's dealt with in this country, is you got to find some way to find some enjoyment for yourself. And obviously podcasting, talking sports for people who are so passionate about it, it's a huge thing.
Yep.
Jacob, I want to thank you, Jeff, personally, because I am a Buckeye Homer honkin' shill. I graduated from Ohio State, but now because of tonight, I have updated my wide receiver Buckeyes that I want. Number 3, Garrett Wilson. Number 2, Chris Olave. Number 1, Buckeye, Jameson Williams. Let's go get him, Cleveland. Let's do it.
Either way, you get a Buckeye out of the deal. Either way, right?
There it is.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
Who cares? Who cares
Right.
in what form it comes, as long as you're getting it?
Exactly. So thank
No
you,
matter
Jeff.
what. 1, 2, or 3. You got options. Right? It's nice how that need lines up.
Hey, LeBron was a Cavalier in the All-Star game. He said he was a part of the crowd.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
Yeah. How funny. He really switched those allegiances, huh?
That was like a night switch. He turned on the light
Darius
switch.
Garland, you're my guy. Screw Anthony Davis.
Whoa. All right, Nick, get us out of here, my friend.
I couldn't get over that, man. Like, yeah, I'm a Laker, but no, I'm a Cavalier. I'm Cleveland. I represent. Nope, don't look at the Lakers. Sorry, I just I've enjoyed it a little bit. But I want to I know we've gone long today, but I just want to remind everybody that because it's a new month, we'll have a new shirt giveaway. We'll have a new winner. Our Patreon members, especially, thank you all so much for continuing to support us. We do it. We do the shirt giveaway courtesy of the great Zabo Apparel. Thank you to them. Jeff, it has been an honor. Thank you for joining us. It's been great to be back. Episode 45. I'm excited. Every week, my excitement grows. Every week. So I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Whoop. That's Jeff.
There's
there's Jeff. And last but not least, why can't I do this?
Ed's over there.
That's Ed. As always.